welcome to the International Desk. I'm Lynda Kinkade. We begin in Paris, where world leaders have gathered on a mission to reduce carbon emissions and limit global warming. Security is tied for the UN Climate Change Summit. This hour, Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates, US President Barack Obama, French President Francois Hollande and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi are due to launch a multi-billion-dollar clean tech initiative. Under it, nations will double their research into clean energy. While public demonstrations have been banned in the French capital since those deadly terror attacks just over 2 weeks ago, some protesters took to the streets on Sunday. More than 200 people were arrested after clashes with police. Presidents Obama and Hollande both linked the fight against global warming to the fight against terror. Senior international correspondent Jim Bitterman is following all those developments for us. Jim, a short time ago, the president of China, the world's biggest polluter, said terrorism cannot hold back mankind's efforts to address climate change. There's been some really emotive words there from world leaders.
Exactly, Linda. In fact, very positive words. And I think President Obama summed it up a bit when he said cynicism is the enemy. For those people who don't think anything can be done here, he's saying, and a lot of the other world leaders are saying, maybe something can be done here over the next 2 weeks. Here's a little bit more of what President Obama had to say.
That this is a turning point. That this is the moment we finally determined we would save our planet. Is the fact that our nations share a sense of urgency about this challenge and a growing realization that it is within our power to do something about it.
And speaking for the United States, he said, we have broken the old arguments for inaction. We proved that strong economic growth and a safer environment are not in conflict with each other. It's that kind of optimism on his part, but also on the parts of a lot of other leaders who assembled here that I think is giving people some rise to the expectation that something could get done here over the next 2 weeks, Linda.
And Jim, there have, of course, been 20 climate change summits in the past. Why is this one different?
Well, I think first there's a momentum that's built over the last few years. I think it's become evident to a lot of people, a lot of world leaders, that there is something going on with the climate that's caused by man and that maybe man should do something about it. That's one thing. The second thing is that I think gives rise to the hope that something will happen is that 180 of the 195 countries that have assembled here, in fact, have signed on to commitments, committing themselves to reducing greenhouse gases over the next 5 and in some cases over the next century, 5 years and over the next century. And as a consequence, people are expecting that if those agreements hold, that in fact there will be a reduction and limitation in greenhouse gases. Whether it will be enough to keep the 2 degrees is another story, because UN experts say it won't be enough, that they've got to commit to even more. But during the next 2 weeks, they'll work through some of these things and find out whether or not the commitments are enough or whether more commitments need to be made, Linda.
And as you mentioned, Jim, this is meant to go for 2 weeks, but the French foreign minister hopes to have hammered out a deal by this Saturday. Given that there are almost 150 heads of state and 40,000 attendees, that seems awfully optimistic.
It is awfully optimistic, but this process has been going on for more than a year now, and basically a lot of the nuts and bolts were put together in a conference in Bonn over the summer. They ended up with an agreement that was 55 pages long. They wanted to get it down to about 20 or something at least reasonable in shape, and they're going to spend the next 2 weeks sort of taking out clauses and paragraphs and whatnot, and disagreements, trying to find parts where they can concede things and find consensus on things. So it'll be a process that's handled by the officials. The heads of state and government will only be here through Tuesday, and then it's up to the officials, the Sherpas as they're called, to work out all the details. And we'll just have to see how it works out. But yes, Fabius said, the foreign minister said, that Saturday would be the deadline in his mind for having an agreement. Now, maybe he's just putting the pressure on, because in fact there is another week beyond that this conference is meant to go on with them.
That's true. Move the deadline forward a little bit. Put some extra pressure on. Jim Bitterman in Paris. Thank you very much.